I don't blame companies for wanting to make as much money as possible, but I do blame them for the lack of respect that they show to their customers. And that is what is happening right now in Hollywood and the video game industry, because as prices are going up, we're not seeing a rise in quality, and we are seeing people like Yoshida saying that $70 to $80 games are a steal and they could skyrocket in the next few years. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I don't blame businessmen for doing business, but they do still need to try to understand where their customers are coming from, and that's just not really happening. And now this former PlayStation exec is saying that $70 or $80 games are a steal, and as long as people choose carefully how they spend their money, I don't think they should be complaining. Funny enough, a PlayStation shouldn't complain when their latest PlayStation Studio game, Concord, ends up losing them $500 million. Funny enough, they shouldn't complain when one of their purchases, Bungie, ends up not paying off. Newsflash, we don't owe you, you owe us. If you want us to swipe our credit cards, you need to be giving us a product that's worthwhile. It feels to me that the closer we get to the Nintendo Switch 2's June launch and the apparently $80 games associated with it, the more people are fighting with themselves over what is and is not worth it. Now, I completely understand you might want to spend $80 on a game that's 200 hours. I might be okay with spending $80 on a game that is 40 hours. Everybody's opinion is going to be different, but I think that a lot of us can accept and acknowledge and agree with the fact that unfortunately the state of the industry is not a super positive one right now, and companies are more oftentimes than not giving us less quality for more money. Look at Nintendo. I love Nintendo. I think that they've created a lot of great games and a lot of good consoles in the past, but they're selling us 5-year-old technology for a premium price tag. That isn't good. Should that be the norm? I don't think so. Should we just say, well, Nintendo can get away with it because they're Nintendo? No. And I don't think that $80 games should be the norm. I get that a lot is going up. Whether that is video games or technology or simply household goods, there are a lot of products that are going up in price right now. But video games are not a necessity, and companies need to recognize that. And there are plenty of video games right now that are releasing at a much lower price point for a much higher quality, like Expedition 33, for example, and they are doing amazing. It just goes to show that you don't need to charge as much money as possible for a product to be successful. It says, though, but at least the Sony veteran and previous head of PlayStation Indie Studios, Shuhei Yoshida, is free from inner turmoil. He thinks relatively expensive, high-quality video games are unequivocally necessary. I don't think that he understands what the word necessary means anymore. Speaking to Critical Hits Games in a video interview during the recent Gamescom Latam, he said, when you look at life in general, other products and price have increased, way more than the game price. So I think it was almost too late for the video game companies to start looking at the pricing structure. I don't believe that every game has to be priced the same. I do agree with that. Each game has a different value it provides or the size of budget. I totally believe it's up to the publisher or developer's self-publishing decision to price their product to the value that they believe they are bringing in. We look at each individual game and we look at the content and the value of the game, the Nintendo of America product experience VP had previously said, and then we say, what is the right price for the value of this entertainment? Yoshida continues to say that in terms of actual price of 70 or 80 for really great games, I think it will still be a steal in terms of the amount of entertainment that the top games, top quality games bring to people compared to another form of entertainment. And as long as people choose carefully how they spend their money, he continues, I don't think that they should be complaining. I think that this is so rich coming from a man with a net worth of over $130 million because it just goes to show that he truly doesn't understand the state of the industry. Video games are not a necessity, and you are acknowledging that prices of everything are going up, so why would people prioritize your video game? Now, yes, not every single person is going to have the ability to buy an $80 game once a month. But what you are doing is when you are raising the prices up, you are making it so maybe somebody who would previously buy one game every 2 months can only buy one game every 3 months or every 4 months, and you are causing less copies of games to be sold. And sure, you might be making a little bit more money for each individual sale, but that's not good in the long run. Now, we are seeing a drastic shift in the video game industry, and I really don't think that it's good, but they really just are not acknowledging all of the factors as to why people are upset over higher price tags. So I understand that companies want to charge as much money per product as possible, but that does not lead you to a good place, at least in my opinion, and judging by all of the failures we have seen and all of the backlash we have seen over the past couple of years. Now, I'm not claiming to be an industry analyst expert, right? But we can clearly see that there are a lot of problems with the arguments of video games should cost more money, because when you look at how video games used to cost at times $70 or $80, looking at titles like Earthbound, right? Times were very different. So there are people who will say, oh, well, there were games in the past that were expensive. Why can't we charge significantly more now with things like inflation? But the industry was completely different. And it's like the executives also have that mentality. Why can't we just charge more? Since physical media is dying, they don't have to worry about producing, storing, or shipping the numbers that they used to, and that's only been declining. There was a significantly smaller customer base and far less games releasing. Then, if you look at how the industry has made $200 billion in 2024, along with nearly 20,000 games releasing, plus a large chunk of those games being digital, so there's no extra costs attached. Yeah, you're not going to convince me that $80 or even $100 for a video game should be normal, and that's not even taking into consideration ways that companies make money outside of an initial game purchase now, like microtransactions. They are so predatory. They're in so many games. And unfortunately, that isn't going to change either. So you are talking about raising game prices because, oh, we haven't raised them drastically in the past 20 or 30 years, but you make so much more money. And ultimately, you have so many more ways of making money. So why should I feel bad for you? I just think that this wording is really poor. Oh, I don't think that they should be complaining. I don't think that Sony should be complaining when people pirate their games because they can't afford them, but they still want to enjoy their favorite hobby. When games go up to $100 for a standard edition, well, I hope Sony isn't going to complain that a couple of people pirate their games because you are the one that forced them out of a price point that they could actually feel comfortable with supporting. See, this is the problem, is raising prices is a slippery slope, and it's like they don't realize that. This all reminds me of what the Take-Two CEO had said back in 2023, where he suggested that games should be paid for per hour played, which is crazy. During a recent investment call, the Take-Two CEO, Strauss Zelnick, said that big budget video games should be more expensive the longer they are. And in terms of our pricing for any entertainment property, basically the algorithm is the value of the expected entertainment usage, which is to say the per hour value times the number of expected hours plus the terminal value that's perceived by the customer in ownership if the title is owned rather than rented or subscribed to. He said in the most confusing way possible, and to simplify, he is talking about the overall value video games offer, and that the price of a video game should be based on how many hours they can expect fans to play the game. And he tried to emphasize after this that he was not advocating a completely new pricing model. But to me, it comes across as that is definitely on the top of his head, and I'm sure on the tops of the heads of most executives. Like, how can we nickel and dime people for all they're worth? So I'm personally not a big fan of what all of these executives have been saying, what all of these CEOs have been saying, and how they have just admittedly tried to find ways to get as much money out of us as possible. Now, will we see the standard video game price actually be $80? Probably in the next 2 or 3 years. We know that Microsoft is raising first-party prices. Nintendo is doing that. Will others follow suit? I do think so. Usually that's how it goes. When one company does something, every company thinks that they can do that. But I do hope that we continue to see standout games like Wu Chang Fallen Feathers and, of course, Expedition 33 being $50 to prove the AAA companies wrong that you can charge a lower price tag and still sell millions and millions of copies and still be praised for the content that you've created and ultimately not go under. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.